This week, I am in the throes of doing some school visits, which is my very favorite part of getting to be a children's chapter book author. On Monday and Tuesday, I was down in Wichita and I had the opportunity of visiting four different schools while I was there to encourage each of those students to become the saints that they were created to be. So my chapter book series is called Adventures with the Saints, and it's sort of like I call it a Catholic magic treehouse. There's siblings who encounter a problem, time travel, meet a saint, learn a lesson, and then they come back to the present day and apply that lesson to their lives. And so what I do when I get an opportunity to sit down with the group of students is I tell each and every one of them that they were born and they were created to become saints, and that God expects certain things from all of his saints, like prayers and faithfulness and obedience, but that every saint has a unique story. And the way that God calls us to our own unique saint story, our own unique saint life, is through using our interests and our passions and the things that we are good at, our talents and the experiences that we have. And then through using those, we can fulfill the mission that God has created us for. And then I go on to tell them, of course, that part of my saint story is using my love of storytelling and the written word to write and to come and talk to students like them, but that they may not be called to be writers, but maybe they're called to be illustrators or artists, or maybe they're called to be teachers or doctors, or even sports players. Like wherever they are called, that's how they are called to be saints. Like whatever their profession is, whatever their vocation is, that's how they're called to be saints. So my favorite part about getting to do school visits is I get to sit down with the kids after I do my whole spiel, and I'm encouraging them to be saints, and I'm telling them about the saints, the books that I've written, and all of that. And I give them an opportunity to ask questions. And I get the best questions from these kids. Now, sometimes they are, less than on point. I always have kids who I ask for questions, and one kid's hand will shoot straight up. They're like so excited, and so I call on them first because I saw their hand first, and they're like deer in the headlight. Like they wanted to be called on, they wanted to raise their hand, but they hadn't really thought about a question. I get a lot of kids who like to tell me things about their lives. One child raised his hand and said, "I have an uncle named Joseph," and I'm like, "Oh, that's amazing! He's named after Saint Joseph, like from my first book. Like that's wonderful." But every once in a while, I get these absolutely profound questions. And this one young lady in one of my schools this week asked me the ultimate question. And so she raised her hand and she said, "How do I know if I'm doing what God wants me to do?" And this is the question for a holy Christian. This is the question is, I want to live a holy life. I want to be a saint. I want to do the right things, like what God is calling me to do. But how on earth do I actually know if I'm doing what he wants me to do? And so I have some suggestions for you if you are in the same boat as that young lady and you are not sure if you are doing what God is wanting you to do. And so the first thing that I want you to always remember is that wherever you are right now, this is exactly where God wants you to be. No matter what your past is, no matter what your plans for the future are, no matter what your circumstances are. So, whether you're married or single, if you have children or are empty nesters or never had any biological children, if you work a full time job out of the house, or if you work full time inside the house, or if you're struggling to find work, if you are a CEO or if you are a school janitor, no matter what your situation is, right there, right exactly where you are, that is exactly where God wants you to be today. And that is exactly the place that God will sanctify you. So one of the lies that we can get caught up in is that it always has to be something better and something bigger, and holiness has to be this huge grand thing. And we think, oh, well, when I fill in the blank, then I can start being holy. When I have more time to pray every day or to go to daily mass, then I'll start being holy. Or when my kids are gone, then I will start figuring out how God wants me to serve and love my neighbor. Or, when I retire from this full-time work that takes so much to do, then I will have time to be the holy person. But the reality is, while you are working, while you are busy with your kids, while you are doing whatever you are doing, that is exactly where God wants to sanctify you. The second thing that you really have to always keep in mind is that as much as we want our own sanctification, we want to become saints so that we can go straight to heaven and spend eternity with God, God wants this so much more for us than we want it for ourselves. And because of this, we can know in faith that everything that God wills or allows is for our sanctification. Now, that quote is actually a quote of St. Catherine of Siena. I cannot take credit for it myself, but I do love it. Everything that God wills or permits, wills or allows, is for our sanctification. And so that means that whatever our circumstances are, God has allowed them in our life because he loves us so much. He wants us to be sanctified. So every good thing that we have, every blessing that we have is a gift that we can turn around and use to share God's glory with the world. But then on the same note, every cross that we are given, every struggle that we have, every uphill battle, every difficulty that we encounter, those are also meant for our sanctification, for us to have the opportunity to be humbled, to rely more on God, to grow in our virtue, and most especially to be able to unite each of that suffering and struggle with the suffering of Christ on the cross, to be able to redeem our souls and the souls of so many other people. So once we know that we're where we're meant to be and that God wants our sanctification, then it comes down to the nitty gritty. What are we actually supposed to be doing? And how do we know that we're doing what God wants us to do? And this answer is actually so much simpler than we make it out to be. It is simply following the 10 commandments, loving God, loving our neighbor, and meeting the needs of our station in life. And that's what he asks us to do. And it just feels so boring sometimes. It is not snazzy. It's not exciting. It's not viral reel worthy. But our ultimate example of this is through our Blessed Mother, Mary, because she had an archangel appear to her to give her her mission. She had no doubt in her mind, no question. It was spelled out for her with literal words of a manifestation of an angel speaking to her and telling her what her role was and what was going to happen. And so she knew. But the angel didn't come back every day. The angel didn't wake her up every morning and say, "Okay, Mary, so today this is going to be what you're going to do, and this is how Jesus is going to react, and this is going to be what goes on with Joseph, and this is what you have to do." Her every day was just following the one time that she had the appearance from the angel and the one message from God. So she was preparing food and gathering herbs and ministering to her neighbors and raising Jesus, the Son of God, God incarnate himself, and just loving him and snuggling with him if he had a bad dream or, had a boo-boo. And she just met the needs of her life. She wasn't given a daily to-do list. She wasn't given a daily check-in with the angel who's saying, "Yep, you did it 100%. You were on track. You did exactly what God asked you to do." She had her mission and she knew what she was meant to do. So, what you have to do is once you get your mission from God, and that mission might be something as simple as loving your family and taking care of your household. Your mission might be something as simple as going to work and smiling and doing a good job at a job that maybe you don't love with people that maybe you don't enjoy being around all of the time in order to provide for the family that God has given to you. Maybe you have a more creative mission and you're a writer or a content creator like me. I feel very blessed to have had this mission that has been given to me, but I don't get to work on this mission until I have first loved and honored God and then made sure that I have met all of the demands of my primary vocation, which is to serve my family. And once I've done that, then I get to do the next thing that I'm called to do. And as long as I do that, I know that I am living in God's will. And so that's how I can go and say confidently to these kids at the school that this is part of my saint story. Writing these books and sharing these books with these kids is part of my saint story, because this is how God has called me to serve and to love my neighbors and to share his message with the world. And it's going to look totally different in your life, and it may not look very glamorous at all. But as long as we follow those expectations and we do these simple day to day things that God asks for us, we can know with confidence that we are doing exactly what God has asked us to. That's all I have for you today. I'm Maria Riley, just a sinner in the throes of trying to be a saint.